wrote this piece about Jimmy Alo, gosh, 20-something years ago. Uh, his name was, I'll give you a quick, he's called Jimmy Blue Eyes. His real name was Vincent Alo. A long life, born in 1904, died in 2001. He was partnered up with Meyer Lansky, and originally he was partnered up with Lansky because the mob wanted, when Lansky started to take off, the mob needed a guy uh, there with him, one of their own guys. So let's, like in Lansky, you've got a thin, little, short Jewish guy. In the world he lived in, what's he tell these hoods do this, do? They're not going to listen to him. But in those matters, Alo would say, do this and do that. And they knew who Alo was. He was Mafia through and through, so they followed orders. If you saw Godfather Part 2, and if you're listening to this, I assume you did, Alo is portrayed as a guy named Johnny Ola, just Alo Ola spelled backwards. Remember, he was a Sicilian messenger boy for Hyman Roth. Roth, I assume, was Lansky to some extent. There was also a movie, I think, Jimmy Blue Eyes. Blue Eyes, in his sense, by the way, he had brown eyes. Was in the Italian American world, Blue Eyes, the straight world, the Anglo world, run by a bunch of blue-eyed people, and so he knew how to cross over, and he was very good at crossing over. He lost his accent. He spoke clearly. He didn't threaten people. He wore nice clothes. He belonged to the Book of the Month Club with Lansky, so he knew how to handle himself. There was a guy named Robert Lacey, who I think was an author. He wrote, there was something pastoral, almost monkish about him. And supposedly, when John Huston was making his epic film, The Bible, that thing went on forever, didn't it? In the early 60s, he offered the job, the voice of God, to Alo, and of course Alo turned it down. The rumor is that the mob had a lot of money in that film. They had a lot of money in a lot of these epic, huge films you saw in the 60s because it took in a lot of money to make these things. It was a good way to make money disappear and then magically reappeared out the back door. Also, according to Johnny Roselli, who generally can be believed, Roselli came across Marilyn Monroe. He introduced her to Alo. Alo called William Morris and said, give this woman a contract, exclusive contract, and she took off. Is that true? I don't know. Who knows? Monroe kept diaries. She talked to people. She never mentioned any of this gangster stuff. So I don't know. I think that might be more rumor than anything else. Alo and Lansky got together in 1938, and they went to Hallandale, Florida. They couldn't make any money, despite what people say. The mob was pissed off about losing their casinos in Havana and blah, blah, blah. That's not true. They were called rug joints. I mean, they're big buildings, and you had to hire staff and air conditioning. And the Americans came maybe seasonally and dropped some money. Otherwise, as Lansky said, you can't make no money on the backs of the Cuban people. They were poor. And by the way, in 1955, when the mob decided they're going to make Las Vegas take off, they used their influence in the Nevada State Senate to pass a law that says if you have interest, financial interest, in a casino anywhere outside of Las Vegas or Nevada, we can't give you a license. And that was convenient. So all these guys who were trapped in these licenses in Havana with these money-losing monsters that they had there, they said, well, I'm sorry, we got to go. We can't help you. And so to a large extent, Lansky was left holding the bag. But so the silliness that the mob killed Kennedy to be friends with Castro so he can get their casinos back. Nobody wanted their casinos back, believe me. Anyway, they were partners back then in Hallandale, Florida, a very nice place. And they opened, I put a picture of one of the casinos on here. When the war ended, 1945, 46, a lot of guys who had gone through Florida who were stationed there, they liked it. Florida was sparsely populated. Wasn't then what it is today, but they liked it. And so it was just becoming a boom state. It had a boom in the 1920s. That collapsed with the Depression. And now in the 1940s, people thought, the hell with this. I mean, they've been in the Pacific, they've been in the European theater. They want a break. They want to go someplace nice, not to the frozen north again. So it was a massive exodus down there. It's a good place to open a casino. Uh, by the way, it was Charlie Luciano, who assigned, I should say, Alo to Lansky back in the 1920s, late 1920s. They were both very small men, Lansky and Alo, just under 5 feet tall. Isn't that interesting? And they were about the same age, about a year apart. They were shy guys. They weren't people who yelled, but they came out of the slums together. They were chain smokers. Uh, they were obsessed, both of them, to have this veneer, as I said, of respectability. True, in Ella's case, he needed it to get things done in the upper world, but they just wanted it. They didn't want to be gangsters. It was something generational. Frank Costello was the same way, going to a psychiatrist and obsessed. In fact, there's a story that when he was dying, he told the ambulance guy there, he said, "Where are you taking me? Which hospital?" And they said XYZ. He said, no. I need to go to the other hospital he named. Well, that hospital in his day had been a place for the very wealthy, but time had passed and it was no longer that sort of hospital. But they were obsessed with respectability, showing the world they weren't what they actually were. By the way, in Florida, I have the names here. The two casinos were the Plantation and the Colonial Inn. And then they moved into something brilliant, Embry Distributing Company, which was jukeboxes, and they had cigarette vending as well. Massive, beautiful, wonderful business because the mob stole records, put them in there. They stole cigarettes. They put it untaxed cigarettes went through this place. It was really, really a lucrative business, and the mob had it locked up all across the country in the 1940s. Some say you might have read this in The Godfather, but there's some thought that since they virtually controlled the New York market, and in those days it was New York that determined where the hits would come from, and so not California, and that Frank Sinatra's career took off like it did. Maybe. They also stole his records. In other words, they pressed his records and put them in the jukeboxes, and they're going to pay him a penny. They moved into television, and the idea was it was consolidated television, and he and Lansky and Alo, they owned about 10% of the company, and they tried to take it to the mob and say, "Look, this is the future." And the mob just didn't see it. They didn't see. They didn't get it. TVs were in bar rooms. They weren't in people's homes, so they were ahead of their time. They were eventually, both of them, booted out of the Embry Company because they were gangsters. It was completely unfair what they did to them, but on the other hand, they were thieves, and what are you going to do? In 1967, when Lansky beat another federal assault, Alo got indicted along with him on 72-count indictment involving securities, a scam. He retired to Florida and outlived Lansky and died, as I said, at age 97, I think.